Rich millionaire cheats on pregnant wife. She throws down her wedding ring and walks away, leaving him. They were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. James Cartwright, a charismatic millionaire with a rags to riches story, and Elena Perez Cartwright, a dedicated teacher who radiated warmth and kindness. Their love story seemed plucked from a fairy tale until one fateful night changed everything. When Elena discovered that James had betrayed her in the most unforgivable way, the dreams of their happy family life shattered like broken glass. In a dramatic confrontation, an enraged pregnant Elena tore off her wedding ring and hurled it to the floor, leaving James reeling with regret. This story reveals that even the perfect facade can hide unforgivable secrets. James Cartwright stood at the top of the sweeping staircase inside the grand foyer of his Beverly Hills mansion, taking in the regal decor of polished marble floors, glittering chandeliers, and modern artwork. He hadn't always been rich. Born to modest means in a small town outside Los Angeles, James grew up scrimping and saving, watching his parents struggle to put food on the table. It was that early taste of hardship that molded his relentless ambition. By the time he turned 25, his startup, a tech-based financial services platform, had gained the attention of major investors, including a chance meeting with Richard Branson at a business expo. James worked tirelessly until the small company transformed into a global player, ultimately netting him his first million by the age of 28. Now in his mid-30s, James had come a long way from that small two-bedroom apartment he once shared with 3 roommates. With financial success came a lifestyle he could only dream of: an expansive mansion in Beverly Hills, a vacation home in Maui, and a private jet he occasionally chartered to attend high-profile business summits in Monaco or Davos. No expense was spared for his personal life either. He wore tailored suits, collected vintage cars, and funded philanthropic endeavors that earned him a good name in the press. James Cartwright was a respected figure on the surface, at least. When James first met Elena Perez, she was teaching 2nd grade in a public school in East Los Angeles, dedicating her time to underprivileged children. Her glowing smile, fierce compassion for others, and genuine warmth contrasted sharply with the shallow social circles James had been frequenting. Their first date was a simple dinner at a family-owned Mexican restaurant recommended by Elena's older brother, Miguel. It was there that James discovered another side to life, one not fueled by luxury and constant hustle, but by heartfelt laughter and the comfort of authenticity. At that humble eatery, Elena told James about her childhood, how her father, Carlos Perez, had worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, and her mother, Sophia, did shifts at a local laundry so Elena could attend a decent school. Elena's mission was to become the teacher she wished she'd had in her early years, a mentor who would guide children beyond just reading and arithmetic and help them learn about life, empathy, and opportunities. James found her passion and altruism irresistible. It wasn't long before he was hopelessly in love. Their courtship was far from perfect, but in the public eye, it was romantic. One night, after an elegant charity ball, James rented out a small local theater to screen a video montage of their journey together, from awkward first date selfies to snapshots of their volunteer trips with Elena's students. There, in front of a small crowd of close friends, James got down on one knee and proposed with a ring that sparkled like the promise of a new dawn. Elena, tears in her eyes, said yes. They were married 9 months later, in a lavish ceremony at a vineyard in Napa Valley. Celebrities, tech moguls, and Elena's large, boisterous family all crowded the scene, toasting to the newlyweds. Even Bill Gates was said to have sent a congratulatory note, having heard of James's philanthropic ventures. For Elena, the wedding day felt like a fairy tale, come true, a testament that love could bridge worlds. Marriage ushered in a new chapter. At first, it was magic. Elena, always the voice of compassion, encouraged James to donate to charities focusing on early education. In turn, James introduced Elena to a world of luxury she had never experienced: private dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, spa retreats in Switzerland, front row seats at Paris Fashion Week. Yet, no matter how extravagant their escapades, Elena never lost her humility. She spent weekends volunteering at local community centers, reminding James that his wealth could be a powerful tool for social change if he used it wisely. But as the months passed, a new restlessness seeped into James's life. The financial empire he built demanded endless expansion, new deals, bigger ventures, more innovative products. He found himself working nights, traveling across continents without Elena, and returning home to see a wife who appeared more distant each time. He rationalized his detachment. "I'm building our future. She'll understand." Then came the news: Elena was pregnant. She had announced it at a small family brunch, surprising James by handing him a wrapped box containing a baby's onesie with the words "Hello, Daddy" embroidered in gold thread. Tears of joy sprang to his eyes. He embraced her, promising he would be the best father ever. For a while, he seemed to mean it. He reduced some of his travel, accompanied Elena to prenatal appointments, and even started building a nursery in one of the guest suites with hand-painted murals of forests and sky-blue clouds. But the demands of James's company never waned. When he wasn't in the middle of acquisitions or merger discussions, he was filming interviews with CNBC or traveling to high-profile conferences. As Elena's belly grew, so did the chasm between them. She tried to communicate: "James, the first need you here. Your child needs you here." He always nodded, offered quick reassurances, and then defaulted to his hectic schedule. Worse still, Elena noticed a shift in his temperament. His phone, once casually left on tables, was suddenly always clutched in his hand or slipped into his pocket. Late-night texts and hushed phone calls became the norm. He grew secretive. Paranoia or an inkling of something real? Elena wasn't sure, but she couldn't dismiss the suspicion that James was hiding something. It began innocently enough. Elena spotted an unfamiliar name flashing on James's phone in the middle of the night. Alyssa Monroe. She asked who that was, and James claimed it was a new executive assistant handling scheduling. Something in her gut told her there was more to that story than James let on, but she had little concrete evidence to doubt him further, so she let it pass. Weeks went by, and Alyssa's name reappeared seemingly around the clock. Sometimes James stepped out of social gatherings to answer calls. Other times, he claimed it was a minor office emergency. One day, while James was at the office, Elena ventured into his home study to fetch a folder for him. When she opened the drawer, she found an unfamiliar lipstick in a shade of deep red. She glanced at her own reflection in the large mirror across the room, recalling that she wore nude or pink lipsticks. Never such a bold color. It was a piece of evidence she couldn't ignore. Fear and uncertainty gripped her. Was her husband, the father of her unborn child, betraying her with someone else? The question haunted her during her prenatal classes, robbing her of sleep at night. When she finally broached the topic with James, he dodged. "I've been burying myself in work, yes, but it's nothing to worry about. Alyssa just handles scheduling and event coordination. If you found a lipstick, it could be from a colleague who visited me in the office. Please, Elena, you're overthinking." Elena wanted to believe him. She knew stress and anxiety weren't good for the baby. However, the seeds of doubt took root, and each day they sprouted deeper into her consciousness. Elena decided to confide in her closest friend, Brianna Parker, who had known Elena since college. They met at a cozy cafe in West Hollywood. The sun filtered in through the large windows, illuminating Elena's pale face and trembling hands as she stirred her tea. Brianna noticed immediately. "Elena, you look exhausted. How are you holding up?" Brianna asked. Concern etched on her features. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. "I'm worried, Bri. James is acting strange, like he's living a whole other life. I can't shake off the feeling that he's cheating." She paused, almost choking on the word. Brianna reached out, placing a comforting hand over Elena's. "Have you talked to him directly?" Elena nodded. "He says I'm overthinking, that it's just work. I want to believe him, but I can't ignore the signs, the phone calls, the late-night meetings, the lipstick. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. We're about to have a baby." Brianna listened carefully. She had never been one to rush to judgment, but neither would she sugarcoat reality. "People say where there's smoke, there's fire. But let's be calm. You know how James can be with his business. He's addicted to it. Maybe that's all it is. If you suspect there's more, you might need to confront it. Don't wait until it's too late." Elena nodded, grateful for Brianna's support. She decided that night she would investigate further before her suspicions eroded what was left of their marriage. She tried not to question James's every move, but her trust was shaken, and she was determined to find out the truth, no matter how painful. A month later, Elena's 8th month of pregnancy loomed. She felt heavier, her ankles swollen, her moods swinging as her body prepared for the biggest change of her life. Still, she pressed on to discover what James might be hiding. Confrontation alone wasn't enough. He always had a response ready. Opportunity arrived when James left for a weekend business trip in San Francisco. He was supposed to attend a private investors meeting near the Golden Gate Bridge. Elena, haunted by suspicion, felt compelled to follow him, no matter how uncomfortable it might be in her pregnant state. She booked a small suite at a boutique hotel and, with Brianna's help, took a flight the same day James departed. That evening, as she crouched behind a line of manicured hedges at the entrance of the Fairmont San Francisco Hotel, Elena witnessed a sight that shattered her heart. James, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, stepped out of a limousine hand in hand with a beautiful, blonde woman. They smiled at each other, exchanged whispers, and walked into the lobby with an intimacy far beyond a mere business associate. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. She felt nauseous, partly from the pregnancy, partly from the overwhelming betrayal playing out in front of her. There was no denying it now. James Cartwright, the man she had trusted with her entire future, was indeed having an affair. Desperate for proof, Elena steeled herself. She followed them inside at a distance, where she saw them check into a suite together. That moment confirmed everything. James wasn't simply consumed by his business. He was consumed by his own selfish desire. Back in her room, Elena couldn't stop crying. The pain in her chest was unbearable, radiating through her body. She reached for her phone to call James, her hands trembling, but she realized she couldn't confront him in that moment. Confrontation would lead to questions about her presence in San Francisco. Instead, she decided she needed more than a fleeting glimpse. She needed irrefutable evidence. The next morning, Elena contacted a local private investigator recommended by a friend of Brianna's. At first, she felt uneasy about involving strangers in her personal life, but she recognized that clarity was essential for her child's future. She needed proof, or at least a final confirmation, before making any drastic decisions. A wiry man named Jackson Liu arrived at Elena's hotel room. He listened sympathetically as Elena outlined her suspicions, her lip trembling when she recounted the scene from the night before. "Don't worry," Jackson said softly. "I can get you the evidence you need. I'll follow him, photograph him, document everything. You should stay behind and avoid raising suspicion. Elena nodded, tears still clinging to her lashes. Please, Jackson, I just want the truth. As promised, Jackson set to work. By the end of that day, he delivered. Photos of James and Alyssa Monroe surfaced, them sharing a meal, holding hands in a private booth, entering and exiting the same hotel suite, even James planting a kiss on Alyssa's cheek. The images were painfully indisputable. Elena sobbed as she scrolled through the pictures on Jackson's camera. She wasn't just grieving the death of their love story, she was grieving the future she envisioned for her unborn child, the illusions of a wholesome family that she'd cherished. The heartbreak was so intense that she felt contractions pulse through her abdomen, a sharp reminder that she couldn't lose control. She had to stay strong for the baby, if nothing else. With the evidence in hand, Elena returned to Los Angeles. She felt numb, driving to the mansion where a swirl of staff buzzed around, polishing floors and dusting chandeliers, oblivious to the chaos in their employer's marriage. Elena locked herself in the master bedroom, burying her face in her pillow to smother the sound of her weeping. The woman James had met in San Francisco was none other than Alyssa Monroe, his so-called executive assistant. James returned to Beverly Hills 2 days later, wearing a carefree grin that disappeared the moment he found Elena waiting in the living room. She looked fragile yet fierce, standing upright, hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly. Spread across the coffee table were the damning photographs. He froze. A wave of guilt washed over his face. "Elena," he murmured, "it's not what it looks like." "Stop," Elena hissed, tears welling in her eyes as she raised a trembling hand. "Don't you dare lie to me again, James." He swallowed hard, scanning the photos. The color drained from his face, confirming that there was no plausible excuse. "I'm sorry. It was a mistake." Elena's voice cracked. "A mistake? That's all you can say? You swore you were traveling for business, and you were, what, hooking up with your assistant?" Her anger rattled the glass vases in the room, nearly reverberating off the walls. Was that the only time? How long has this been going on? James stumbled over his words. "Elena, I never meant to hurt you. It started as just flirting. We were working long hours. It escalated." Elena's chest heaved, tears streaming freely now. "This is how you repay me. I gave up everything, my job, my independence to be your wife, to carry your child. And you betray me with a woman who calls you at all hours?" James reached out, his eyes rimmed with tears. "Please, don't say it like that. I still love you, Elena. I made a terrible mistake. I want to fix it." She recoiled, stepping back. The wave of heartbreak and fury surged within her. Before James could speak again, she slipped off her wedding ring. The diamond glistened under the living room chandelier for a brief moment as she held it between trembling fingers. Then, in one fluid motion, she flung it onto the marble floor where it clanged and spun away, landing near his feet. "Fix this," she said, her tone hollow and pained. "You can't fix what you've destroyed. We are done, James. I'm leaving, and you'll never have the chance to hurt me or our child again." Her words echoed in the stunned silence. Without another glance, Elena turned and walked out the door, tears blinding her as she left the opulent mansion that once represented her fairy tale. James collapsed to his knees, picking up the ring that had come to symbolize a lost promise. Regret coursed through his veins, but it was too late. Elena was gone. Elena's departure sent shockwaves through James's life. He tried calling and texting her, but she remained silent. She had relocated to her brother Miguel's modest home in Pasadena. The moment she arrived, Miguel embraced her, offering both strength and solace as she cried on his shoulder. All Elena wanted was to protect her unborn child from further heartbreak. Meanwhile, James's attempts at damage control extended to shutting out Alyssa entirely. He ended the affair cold turkey, eventually terminating her employment. Guilt and remorse filled his every waking moment. He realized that he had compromised the one relationship that truly mattered for something that meant nothing in comparison. He called Elena incessantly, leaving voicemails. "Please, Elena, let me explain. I'll do anything to make this right." She never responded. James sought out Elena's parents, Carlos and Sophia, but they gave him a frosty reception. Sophia, with tears in her eyes, asked him, "Why would you do this to her, especially now?" Carlos threatened to have him removed from their property if he ever approached Elena there. James felt helpless, consumed by regret. James also faced public scrutiny. Word got out that James Cartwright's marriage was on the rocks, aided by gossip columns and tabloid speculation. Some of James's philanthropic partners quietly withdrew from joint projects, wary of the scandal. For the first time in his life, James experienced the painful realization that not all crises could be solved by throwing money at them. Months passed without any contact between James and Elena. She immersed herself in her pregnancy, leaning on her family and friends. Brianna accompanied her to LeMay's classes, while Miguel prepared a small, cozy nursery in his own home, determined to offer Elena a stable environment. Then, on a stormy night in early April, Elena went into labor. Rain pelted the windows as she clutched Brianna's hand, her screams echoing through the corridors of Pasadena General Hospital. For hours she endured the contractions, her body racked with pain, but her spirit unwavering. Finally, at 3 a.m., Elena gave birth to a baby girl, Ariana Sophia Cartwright. Tears of joy and sorrow intermixed on Elena's face. Joy for holding her beautiful daughter for the first time. Sorrow that Ariana's father was not by her side to witness the miracle of her arrival. Miguel stood outside the delivery room, his arms crossed over his chest, as nurses congratulated him on becoming an uncle. The next morning, he sent a short message to James. "Elena had the baby. A girl, she's healthy. Don't come here." Despite his protective stance, a small part of Miguel recognized that James had a right to know his daughter, yet he remained furious at James for his betrayal. James, however, did show up at the hospital, ignoring Miguel's warning. By the time he arrived, Elena was resting. Nurses tried to keep him away from her room, but eventually Elena allowed him in, though with conditions. He walked in softly, seeing her pale face, hair damp with sweat, and the small bundle in her arms. He approached slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. The baby's little face was wrapped in a pink blanket, only her tiny nose and dark hair visible. Tears blurred James's vision. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Elena's eyes were cold, but she allowed him a brief moment. "This is Ariana Sophia," she said, quietly, her voice still laced with exhaustion. "She's perfect." James reached out a finger, and Ariana's little hand wrapped around it. In that instant, he felt a love so profound it nearly destroyed him with guilt. "Elena," he murmured, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. Please let me be part of her life." Elena refused to meet his gaze. "You have rights as her father, but don't expect me to welcome you back with open arms." "Ariana deserves a loving family, but I can't pretend nothing happened." He gently touched Ariana's forehead, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I'll do anything," he choked out, "to be a father to her." With those words, Elena looked away. The open wound of James's betrayal still festered. "We'll see," she said numbly, "but don't you dare think you can buy your way back in. Ariana deserves genuine love and stability." James tried everything to win back Elena's trust. He cancelled a series of lucrative business trips, delegated major responsibilities to a trusted lieutenant in his company, and shifted his focus toward family. He sent Elena daily texts. How's Ariana? Do you need anything? I'll bring diapers, formula, anything at all. He only received terse responses. Elena's heartbreak ran deep, and no flurry of fatherly gestures could heal it overnight. He also arranged for child support and set up a trust fund for Ariana, naming Elena the custodian. But Elena interpreted these moves as attempts to smooth over the damage with money. She accepted the financial support for Ariana's sake, but it did nothing to thaw her heart. The scandal weighed heavily on James's mind. He no longer found pleasure in his sprawling mansion or in the swirling social events he used to attend. His sleeping hours were haunted by nightmares of Alyssa and his betrayal. One day, he visited the community center where Elena used to volunteer, donating a large sum to enhance their children's reading programs. In the past, such a contribution might have been a joyous surprise for Elena, but now, all she felt was bitterness. She saw it as James's attempt to cleanse his conscience. Her stance remained, "You can't buy back the trust you smashed to pieces." 3 months after Ariana's birth, Elena was adjusting to motherhood, albeit exhausted from late-night feedings and the emotional toll of her heartbreak. Brianna, noticing Elena's drained spirit, suggested a short getaway. "You deserve a break, just a few days up the coast. Let your parents watch Ariana for a night, and I'll come with you. We can decompress." Elena agreed. Though reluctant to leave her newborn even momentarily, she realized she needed rest. Together, they booked an Airbnb overlooking the cliffs near Big Sur. The salt air, breathtaking ocean views, and a short respite from the city seemed the perfect way to gather her thoughts. Meanwhile, James, unbeknownst to Elena, had been grappling with a revelation of his own. Alyssa Monroe was pregnant, or so she claimed. One afternoon, Alyssa showed up at James's office, dark sunglasses hiding puffy eyes. She claimed she was carrying his child and demanded support. Confused and stressed, James immediately asked for medical proof, but Alyssa walked out in a fury, threatening legal action if he didn't comply with her demands. For all James knew, it could be a ploy, a means to extort money. After the scandal, he had no illusions about Alyssa's character. And yet, a nagging doubt lingered. What if the child was his? Shaken by this new possibility, James hired another private investigator to confirm Alyssa's story. In the meantime, he decided not to burden Elena with the news. As fractured as things were, he didn't want to add more stress to her life, especially while she was caring for Ariana. On the 3rd day of Elena's trip to Big Sur, she found herself strolling along a narrow coastal path with Brianna. They inhaled the crisp ocean air, relishing the momentary escape from everything: heartbreak, betrayal, and single motherhood. Brianna rummaged through her bag for a camera. She wanted to capture the memory of their scenic walk. Suddenly, Elena's phone buzzed. She checked the screen. It was James. Anxiety tightened her chest. She considered ignoring it, but something in her gut told her to answer. "What is it, James?" she said wearily. His voice quivered with urgency. "Elena, I need to talk to you, please. It's important." She hesitated, glancing at the rolling waves. "Make it quick." There was a pause before he spoke. I need to see you in person. Can we meet somewhere neutral? It's about Ariana, about our future, and something else." Elena's anger flared. "What is it this time? Are you engaged to Alyssa now, or did you find a new mistress?" He sounded wounded. "No, of course not. I ended everything with Alyssa. Please, this concerns something bigger. It might affect all of us." Elena sighed, her heart pounding. She didn't have the mental energy for more drama, but curiosity tugged at her. "Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at that cafe near the wharf. Don't be late." When she hung up, Brianna took her arm gently. "Are you sure you want to face him again?" Elena looked out at the vast ocean. "I'm not sure of anything, but I need closure, or at least to hear him out." At precisely 2 p.m. the following day, Elena arrived at the cafe near the wharf, wearing a loose sundress that fluttered in the cool breeze. She spotted James at a corner table, nursing a cup of coffee. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled. It was a far cry from the polished millionaire she had married. She slid into the chair opposite him, arms crossed. "I'm here." "What's so urgent?" James exhaled. "Thank you for coming. Before I tell you, I just want you to know that I regret everything I've done. It's tearing me apart." Elena's cold gaze didn't waver. "Go on." He swallowed. "Alyssa showed up. She claims she's pregnant with my child. I haven't confirmed if it's true. I'm doing a background check and might request a paternity test. I want you to hear this from me, not from some scandalized headline." Her face paled. For a moment, she felt faint, the world spinning around her. "So, you might have fathered another child?" she whispered in disbelief. James slumped in his seat, staring down at his coffee cup. "I'm not certain, Elena. It could be a ploy, but I had to tell you. You and Ariana deserve the truth, no matter how ugly it is." Elena's mind reeled. She realized that the betrayal went beyond just an affair. The possibility of James having another child with his mistress cut her deeply, stirring a nauseating mix of disgust and sorrow. She pressed her hands flat on the table, as if bracing for impact. "I'm glad you told me," she said quietly, "but that doesn't change anything for me. I've already left. Ariana and I have started a new chapter without you. If Alyssa is pregnant, that's your responsibility to handle, not mine." James's voice shook with desperation. "But Ariana, she needs a father." Elena's eyes flashed with anger. "A father, yes, but not a liar. Right now, I don't know if you're capable of the honesty and moral integrity she deserves." He tried to speak, but Elena stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "If this turns out to be true, then I want Ariana as far away from your scandal as possible. She's an innocent child. She shouldn't grow up entangled in your mess." Elena turned to leave, tears stinging her eyes. James reached for her arm, but she wrenched it free. The swirl of emotions threatened to consume her, yet she needed to hold it together, if not for herself, then for Ariana. Days turned into weeks as James awaited the results of Alyssa's paternity test. Jackson Liu, the private investigator, discovered that Alyssa had recently been dating another wealthy businessman, though their timeline overlapped suspiciously with James's affair. When confronted, Alyssa continued to insist the baby was James's and threatened a public lawsuit if he didn't provide immediate support. Meanwhile, Elena wrestled with conflicting feelings. She felt an unexpected wave of pity for James, seeing how shattered he was. Yet, her anger and mistrust kept her from offering solace. Brianna urged her not to give in. "He's already done enough damage. Focus on Ariana." Every day, Elena reminded herself that her priority was her daughter's well-being. She considered the possibility that James might father 2 children of nearly the same age. It was a scenario she never could have envisioned before the heartbreak. She tried to stay calm, but at times she would break down crying in her room, mourning the collapse of her fairy tale marriage. Finally, the test results arrived. Alyssa's child was not James's. The sense of relief he felt was quickly overshadowed by a grim realization. Even though he'd been spared that complication, it didn't erase the harm he had already caused. With the paternity scare resolved, James decided to take one last shot at salvaging the only family he truly cared about, Elena and Ariana. Though James knew money couldn't solve everything, he also recognized that actions sometimes spoke louder than words. He devised a plan less about extravagance and more about humility and genuine transformation. He sold the Beverly Hills mansion, the symbol of his success and, ironically, the scene of his betrayal. With the proceeds, he donated half to a children's education foundation and used the rest to establish a new philanthropic endeavor in Elena's name, focusing on early childhood literacy. It was a move that stunned the media. Rumors swirled, James Cartwright sells mansion for love. Elena heard about it through a friend who worked at a news station. She was skeptical, but also quietly moved. Did James truly regret his actions enough to forsake his prized lifestyle? One Sunday afternoon, James appeared at her parents' home, carrying a small box. Carlos and Sophia were out, giving Elena a rare, quiet moment with Ariana. Hearing the doorbell, Elena opened the door hesitantly. Upon seeing James, she almost closed it again, but Ariana's babbling behind her broke her resolve. "What do you want?" Elena asked coolly. "I'm here to see Ariana," he said, holding up the box. "These are books for her. I'd also like a moment to talk to you." She observed him, noticing he had lost weight. His designer suit had been replaced by simple jeans and a plain shirt. The look in his eyes was one of genuine remorse. Against her better judgment, she allowed him inside. He handed Elena the box, which contained a set of bilingual children's books, English and Spanish, reflecting Elena's heritage. She noticed each cover had Ariana's name inscribed in gold lettering, "For Ariana Cartwright. May you find magic in every story." Elena's throat tightened. "James, I don't know what you're trying to do, but these grand gestures don't erase the past." James nodded, eyes fixed on Ariana, who was wiggling in a playpen. "I know that. I'm not here to erase it. I'm here to take responsibility for it. Selling the mansion, donating to charity, it's not just for you. It's for me too. I needed to prove to myself that I can be better, that I can prioritize what truly matters. My house, my fortune, it all felt hollow without you and Ariana." Elena's skepticism flared. "You think living a simpler life somehow absolves you of betrayal?" "No," he said softly, "it doesn't, but it's a start. I can't buy forgiveness, and I don't expect you to trust me again overnight. But I love Ariana, and I want to be in her life, even if you never take me back as your husband." Elena examined him. She saw sincerity in his eyes, but trust was a fragile thing, not easily rebuilt. After a long pause, she allowed James to hold Ariana. The baby gazed up at him, her little eyes wide and curious. Something in the child's innocent stare tugged at Elena's heart. Over the following weeks, James visited regularly to spend time with Ariana, always with Elena's permission. He would arrive with groceries, offering to cook for the family or bring new learning toys for Ariana, focusing on her early cognitive development. Sometimes he even brought his mother, Catherine Cartwright, who formed an instant bond with her granddaughter. Though Elena kept her guard up, she couldn't deny that James was making a genuine effort to be a present father. Miguel remained hostile, glaring at James whenever he came by. "You better not hurt my sister again," he warned at least once a day. James never retaliated. He accepted Miguel's anger as justified penance for his mistakes. James also continued working. He still had his company to run, but had drastically reduced his travel schedule. He spent evenings reading bedtime stories to Ariana, practicing the Spanish phrases. Elena taught him, and learning how to change diapers without panicking. The everyday moments, mundane as they were, brought an unexpected joy to James. He finally understood what life was about: love and family over ambition and greed. Elena witnessed these changes with mixed emotions: hope, fear, longing, and residual heartbreak. She couldn't deny that James was stepping up in ways she'd only dreamed of before. But the sting of betrayal loomed over them like a dark cloud. One night, after dinner with her parents, James lingered behind while Elena put Ariana to sleep. He ventured into the kitchen, drying dishes beside Elena. The air felt charged with unspoken words. Finally, he set down the dish towel. "Elena, I realize I've lost your trust." and I know it might never fully come back, but I'd like to ask if we can see a counselor together. If not for us, then at least to find a healthy co-parenting path for Ariana." Elena turned to face him, arms folded. "I don't know if I'm ready for that, James." "It's still raw," he nodded. "I understand, but if you ever feel ready, I'm willing." She studied his face for a moment, recalling the early days of their marriage, the man who had once made her laugh until her sides ached. A pang of sadness hit her. "Let me think about it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Weeks later, Elena found herself seated in a plush chair at a family therapist's office, waiting for James to arrive. She had finally agreed to counseling, not as a means to reconcile romantically, but to map out a plan for Ariana's future. If there was any shred of hope for them, they needed professional guidance. James arrived punctually, looking anxious and out of place in the homely setting of the therapist's office. Dr. Angela Romero, a warm, empathetic woman, greeted them both. Over the next hour, they recounted their story, the whirlwind romance, the betrayal, the pregnancy. Elena spoke tearfully about her shattered trust, while James openly admitted the affair, expressing deep remorse. Dr. Romero offered no quick fixes. She explained that rebuilding trust was a slow process requiring transparency, emotional labor, and, most importantly, time. She suggested exercises, journaling daily about their feelings, scheduling safe conversations to air grievances, and most vital, James needed to prove his reliability through consistent actions. For the first few sessions, Elena remained guarded, but gradually she felt herself open up, sharing the pain that had been festering inside. She confessed her fears that James could never truly change, that Ariana would grow up witnessing a dysfunctional dynamic, that Elena would never feel secure in another relationship. James listened earnestly, tears often escaping his eyes. He stopped offering quick apologies and instead tried to validate Elena's feelings. He admitted that his ambition, once a source of pride, had led him down a path of moral compromise. "I let success consume me," he told Dr. Romero. "I lost sight of what mattered most, my wife and my unborn child. By the time I realized it, I'd already done irreversible damage." As months rolled on, a slow but tangible shift occurred. James continued to attend therapy sessions, even on days when Elena felt too drained to face their marital issues. He arranged father-daughter playdates under Elena's watchful eye, showing up consistently with diapers, formula, and a bright smile for Ariana. The child lit up whenever James walked into the room, cooing happily as he cradled her. Elena's heart was torn each time she watched them. She couldn't forget the betrayal, but she also saw how James showered Ariana with genuine love and affection. Their daughter's laughter filled the house, and sometimes Elena found herself smiling alongside them until the painful memory of James's affair intruded, reminding her to keep her walls up. An eventful day came when James proposed that Elena and Ariana move into a smaller, more modest home with him, not as husband and wife, but under a workable co-parenting arrangement. She refused, citing she needed more time, but the very fact that he asked signaled his willingness to let go of the mansion and all the superficial trappings in favor of a genuine family environment. After deliberation, Elena suggested a compromise. She would bring Ariana to the new house occasionally, letting them spend quality time as father and daughter, while she could observe how James lived and determine if his changes were more than mere gestures. One afternoon, as Elena arrived at the new house, she spotted James on a phone call in the backyard. He sounded agitated, curious. She eavesdropped briefly. "No, Alyssa. I've already told you I'm not responsible. The paternity test was clear. Stop calling." A flash of panic surged in Elena's chest, igniting old wounds. She confronted James as soon as he hung up. "She's still calling you? What does she want now?" James sighed, running a hand through his hair. She's basically extorting me, threatening to release details about our affair to tabloids unless I pay her. I told her I won't give in. Elena's jaw tightened. And you didn't tell me because? I didn't want to open old scars, he admitted. But if we're working toward any sort of reconciliation, I realize I need to be honest about everything. I'm sorry. The sincerity in his voice calmed Elena somewhat. She realized that in the past, James might have lied or concealed the cause. Now he was choosing honesty, even if it was painful. It didn't instantly quell her hurt, but it was a sign of growth. Over the next year, the fragile peace between them slowly solidified. Therapy continued, and Elena moved back into full-time teaching. She started each morning early, dropping Ariana off at her parents' place or with Miguel if James was traveling for the day. As Ariana's first birthday approached, Elena surprised herself by inviting James to help plan a small party. Together, they picked out a jungle safari theme, complete with stuffed animals, green and yellow decorations, and a child-friendly cake. On the day of Ariana's birthday, a cluster of balloons adorned the living room of Miguel's house. Family and friends gathered, and Ariana, dressed in a tiny lion costume, giggled as everyone sang Happy Birthday. James, wearing a beaming smile, carefully guided Ariana's hand to smash a small piece of cake. Elena snapped a photo, capturing Ariana's frosting-covered grin and James's proud gaze. In that moment, Elena felt a pang of happiness and regret. Happiness for Ariana, regret for what could have been had. James never strayed. As the party wound down, James approached Elena with a sense of wistful nostalgia. "Thank you for letting me be here," he said, his voice hushed. Elena nodded, her arms crossed defensively. "She's your daughter. You have a right to be here." He studied her face. "What about us? Is there any chance we can find our way back to each other?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, James. Too much has happened. I'm not saying never, but it's going to take a miracle for me to trust you again." James exhaled, nodding. "Then I'll pray for that miracle every day." Chapter 21. Standing at the crossroads months later, Ariana was toddling around on shaky little legs. She was the picture of sunshine, babbling words in a mix of Spanish and English. Life had carved out a new normal, co-parenting schedules, therapy sessions, joint pediatrician visits, and the occasional family dinner for Ariana's sake. Elena noticed that James never complained about the arrangement. He accepted her boundaries, focusing on being a consistently loving father. Still, the heartbreak lingered. Elena, though calmer around James, maintained her emotional distance. She feared letting her guard down, only to be crushed again. But as Ariana's second birthday approached, Elena began to feel stirrings of a different kind of fear. The fear that she might be depriving Ariana of a united family simply because she couldn't overcome her pain. In therapy, Dr. Romero posed a critical question. "Elena, if James continues to show he's changed, and you still love him deep down, would you consider a new beginning? Not picking up where you left off, but forging a fresh relationship built on honesty?" Elena's eyes brimmed with tears. She felt torn, uncertain if she could ever truly open her heart again. The ghost of betrayal haunted her, yet seeing James kneel down to tie Ariana's shoelaces or feed her little spoonfuls of mashed peas tugged at her heartstrings in ways she couldn't ignore. On a cool autumn evening, Elena found herself alone, sitting on a bench at the local park where Ariana often played. The gentle rustle of leaves reminded her of the passing seasons, the changes in her life. She thought of her earlier dreams, marriage, motherhood, a happy home. Reality had shattered those dreams, but maybe something new could grow from the rubble. She took out her phone and scrolled through photos of Ariana, with James, her father's playful grin, mirrored on Ariana's tiny face. Tears pricked at Elena's eyes as she realized how desperately she wished she could heal enough to give her daughter a loving, united family. But a war raged inside her. The memory of James's betrayal locked horns with her hope for the future. In a moment of vulnerability, she called James. He answered on the second ring, surprise evident in his voice. "Elena, is everything okay?" "I'm at the park," she said. "Can you come here? I'd like to talk." He arrived 30 minutes later, panting as though he had run part of the way. They sat on the bench, the lamppost behind them casting a warm glow on their tired faces. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Elena took a breath. "I've been thinking. About us, about Ariana. I see how hard you've worked to make things right. You've been a good father to her. And you've tried to be honest with me." James nodded, swallowing. "I meant what I said in therapy. I'll never stop trying." She glanced down at her hands, fingers laced together. "I can't guarantee I can forgive you fully, but I'd like to try. If we take it slow, counseling, open communication, and if you ever betray me again, James, that's it." Emotion flooded his face. "Elena, I swear I'll never take you for granted again. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I've changed." She offered a tentative smile. In her eyes, a spark of hope flickered, tempered by caution. The road ahead would be long and riddled with challenges, but for the first time in a long time, they weren't standing on opposite sides. They were, at least, standing together. They began the process of rebuilding. Counseling sessions now included discussions about potential reconciliation. Elena set boundaries, separate rooms if they traveled together, no assumptions about intimacy, and complete transparency regarding James's interactions, especially at work. James complied without complaint. He even switched departments in his own company, handing over day-to-day responsibilities to a new CEO, so he could focus on philanthropic work, particularly the Children's Literacy Initiative created in Elena's name. They started spending more time as a trio, taking Ariana to the beach or the zoo, forging memories that Elena hoped would overshadow the bitter recollections of betrayal. A pivotal moment came when Elena decided to move back in with James into the modest home he had purchased after selling the mansion. Though she insisted on having her own room for the time being, living under the same roof was a major step. It gave them daily proximity, allowing James to help with Ariana's bedtime routine and for the three of them to share family dinners. Through therapy, late-night talks, and painful honesty, they painstakingly laid a foundation for a brand new relationship. After nearly 2 years of this steady effort, James surprised Elena with a small ceremony in the backyard. He gathered close family and friends, along with Dr. Romero and Brianna, who had become integral supporters. In front of them all, James knelt with tears in his eyes. He presented Elena with a ring, not the old one, which symbolized betrayal, but a simpler band that symbolized renewal. "Elena," he said, voice quavering, "we've been through hell and back. I know I can never undo the pain I caused, but I'm asking if you'll start fresh with me as my partner, my equal, and the mother of our child. Will you renew our vows in a way that honors the family we've become?" Tears streaked Elena's face. For a fleeting moment, she recalled throwing down her original wedding ring on the mansion's marble floor. It had marked a chapter of agony. But this new ring, simpler yet heartfelt, represented a second chance, earned through hardships and genuine remorse. She nodded, too choked up to speak, and James slipped it onto her finger. Their friends and family erupted into applause, tears, and an undercurrent of hope. Elena and James renewed their vows on a serene afternoon under a blooming oak tree in their backyard. Ariana, now almost 3 years old, scattered flower petals around the makeshift altar, giggling gleefully. Elena wore a simple white dress, her face radiant yet pensive, aware that this wasn't a fairy tale wedding but a testament to resilience and forgiveness. Their vows reflected the reality of their journey. "I promise to remain honest, even when it hurts," James said softly. "I promise to prioritize you and our family over ambition or fear," Elena responded. They acknowledged that betrayal leaves scars that time alone can't heal. It takes concerted effort, empathy, and faith in the other person's ability to change. After the ceremony, they shared a modest reception. No tabloids, no celebrity guests, only those who had truly cared for them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, James and Elena danced slowly, holding each other close. A fragile peace filled the air. They both knew that trust would always need tending, but it no longer felt impossible. Their path wasn't guaranteed free of future storms, but they faced it together wiser, humbled, and committed to placing love above all else. Elena still remembered that day. She threw her wedding ring onto the marble floor, a moment seared into her memory as a symbol of heartbreak and defiance. Yet, here she was, forging a new story with the same man who'd once shattered her heart. Life had taught her that love is neither simple nor straightforward, but at its best, it's capable of growth and renewal when both parties strive earnestly to nurture it. James, for his part, lived daily with gratitude and remorse, using his mistakes as a reminder of what he stood to lose if he ever faltered again. The ring on Elena's finger was no longer just a piece of jewelry, it was a beacon of their second chance, a pledge that love could resurrect from ashes if tended with honesty and humility. Thus, their story continued, not as a picture-perfect fairy tale, but as a real-life drama of forgiveness, regret, and ultimate redemption, proving that even after the most painful betrayals, there can be a path forward for those willing to walk it together. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster of heartbreak, regret, and, ultimately, hope. Millionaire cheats on pregnant wife. She throws down her wedding ring and walks away, leaving him in regret. Reminds us that trust can be broken in an instant, but rebuilding it requires a lifetime of work. Elena and James's journey from betrayal to redemption shows that true love is not about perfection, but about humility, forgiveness, and relentless effort to grow and change. Their story proves that even after the deepest wounds, a family can find a way forward if they choose honesty and empathy over secrets and lies. If this dramatic tale moved you or stirred your thoughts, please help this channel grow. Like this video, share it with friends and family who love a gripping drama. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that delve into the complexities of love, life, and second chances. Your support means the world to us.